Let's continue. So you press this button and there's a second faction you might want to try out. This is Northern Realms. Unfortunately, I won't be able to talk about Northern Realms too much, because first of all, I didn't try it myself. Second of all, I think it's a difficult deck, and third of all, I don't even think it's rewarding. So, like, it also, I don't even think it has a high skill cap, but I think it's also not good as an introduction. How it usually looks like, just very quickly, I mean, you can also build it with Henselt. With Henselt it would be siege towers, so I won't click it together because of the reason mentioned, but you play Henselt, you put all the stuff which is shooting, where if your cards convert to gold, and then at some point you convert them to gold, and then you shoot them down, for example. Yeah, or there's also another deck type which rewards it by buffing if they convert to gold. Just don't do it. It's a big effort, and if you want to explore game spaces, of course you can do that, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it at the beginning. And the other Northern Realm deck would be with Rudderwit. So that's basically a deck which tries to distract the opponent's game plan or interrupt the opponent's game plan, and they are doing so by basically always killing the other minions. And it's even dust heavy, I guess, so not very advisable. It would play with Jennifer, which goes to 7 and then shoots the opponent down. It plays with Igni. It plays with stuff like, where is it? Yeah. There's a dragon with which eats all. I don't even have him. Jene Merde Ramaris, whatever. No, it's like, it doesn't matter, guys. You will find it online if you search it. Not recommended. So, Scoia'tael. Scoia'tael, there are different deck types. You can choose the leader Bruvahook, which gives you a silver card. He is always viable, and the other one would be the one you don't see now. But the other one is where you can replay a minion again. They are both roughly of the same skill, they are roughly both of the same power level, which means you can play this dwarf in the elven deck, the dwarf leader. You can also play the elven leader in the dwarf deck. Long story short, it doesn't really matter that much. Yeah. So we just take this leader, and there are two ways how you can kind of tier 1/2 build the Scoia'tael deck. One is with elves and the other one is with dwarves. I go into the browse slot very quickly, so let's see. And the one would be with these dwarves, the Mahakam Defender. They're basically saying Mahakam. Yeah, okay. If they come into the game, that alone would be reason enough to play this deck. It's very beginner friendly. The reason is you don't take that much encounters for your opponent disruption, or for what your opponent might be able to do. I know people might want to disagree there, so people might say, okay, this deck lives a lot from anticipating the opponent's answers and play around those. Yes and no. It's very beginner friendly, guys. Okay, so what you do is you keep those guys and you put them out onto the battlefield. You buff them a lot, and then you probably just win if your opponent cannot disrupt you. You also You also play a lot of very powerful minions, so this would be one of those. So this is common, this is rare, so you will have access to those. You play 3 of those. You play these smugglers 2 times, but you can also just play that 3 times. You can use the Dwarven Skirmisher as a filler if you want. You definitely need these 3 times. You might want to run a Thunder if you want. Yeah, you can also take the normal one here. No. What is important are the first lights, because the rally option is basically very strong. No? So this might be kind of more or less the basic construction. Of course, these are 19 cards, so you might want to exclude the one or the other. Usually, yeah, usually that's a Hawkspear Smuggler you exclude. Usually that might be an Elder Thunder. You can basically choose, yeah, you can also choose to take this one or the one or the other, basically. Yeah, but yeah. You can just choose. You can also choose to take one more out of them. I just want to show what you can fill with if you don't have enough golds and silvers. Again, I mean, it's always the same principle, right? If you have 4 or less golden cards, you always put in all golden cards you have. That's like the priority. So if you have 4 golden cards, or let's say you have 3 golden cards, you just put all golden cards in your deck. And there's nearly no exception. I think there is no exception. I mean, okay, maybe you don't put this in, yeah, maybe you even put this. Yeah, before you play a bronze card, you always play the golden card, I think. Yeah. I guess the same goes with the silver slot, but you usually have this, which you put in there. Usually have this. Even a Scourge if you want. Yeah, don't need to. You also buff your stuff. Right. Okay. Okay, so basically this, and then of course if you have stuff like this, you might want to put stuff like this in. If you yeah, in the golden slot, if you really have, let's say, enough dust to craft. Let's see what we would like to craft from the epics. So are there any epics you could craft for this deck? Yeah, not really. Not really. But again, if you have an abundance of dust, you would probably put Saskia in. Some are not playing her, but I think she's quite strong. I'm not sure whether it's worth to craft your with. I mean, yes, of course you play him, but if you, let's say, have Triss, I mean, I'm not even sure. Obviously, Yorwes is way stronger than Triss is. But, I mean, way stronger. Is dominatingly stronger than Triss. But, okay, sorry. Okay. The Yorwes is dominating Triss. So Yorwes is pretty much better in any aspect than Triss. But he's just a little bit better. So I don't even know whether you want to craft Yorwes. Because Triss you can play in every deck, right? So maybe... I guess if you want to craft anything, you would like to craft her. That's pretty... yeah, I'm really not sure, right? I think... yeah, maybe you would like to craft her because she's really stable. And then if you really have an abundance, you might also craft Sultan and Saskia. Sure. Okay. Silver slot. Yeah, maybe you can get one of those. Maybe you want to get one of those. Oh yeah, sorry, definitely Evan. If you have, definitely this guy. Okay, so basically going into this direction. So that would be Dwarf buff deck. Prince, again, very easy and simple to be played. General principle, you play those dudes. Then you buff them up either with dwarves or you begin to play these elven mercenaries. You play these first lights, and if you play these first lights, you chain them. So you play first light always for, I mean, if you don't have a better use, you usually should play it for rally, and then you get additional minions, and those minions will be usually the Hawker healers, and then these Hawker healers will help you to buff entire rows. Yeah, very simple to play. Would recommend that for beginning play, just to get a grip of the mechanics. Yeah, for me it's just about showing like from the staple transition budget, right? So showing the core of the deck, and then you can add cards if you have them. But for me, it's important to show the core of the deck. Yeah, so what does it do? And just because you will be able to build the core of pretty much every faction after a week of gameplay. Yeah, the core. Whether the core is strong enough, that's subject to discussion. But you will be able to play to basically build those cores. Also, just short words to the Elven deck and how this works. Because usually the core is based on the Bronze cards, right? And if the core is based on the Bronze cards, you can usually just build that. So what is the Elven deck? Yeah, the Elven deck is basically spawning a lot of elves, which can include these guys, So spawning a lot of commandos, and then playing the other elves. To be honest, I haven't played this deck at all, so I won't go into details. But what it does, it spawns elves. Yeah, it spawns a lot of these elves, and you can basically benefit from them. Don't want to talk about that too much because again, I haven't played it. But if you want to play the elf deck, you can probably just Google it on Gwent decks. So Skellige, yeah, so that would be the fourth decision tree. So if you choose to play Skellige and you don't have the heroes, doesn't matter, because you can pretty much play every hero if you don't want to necessarily play the discard. Okay, we have focus on the discard, so let's see. To be honest, Skellige also just works without discard. I mean, there's also a crippler deck, which basically cripples your opponents and then works. I mean, I can also just show you the core of that, but again, I haven't played that much. But it's probably a lot of it's probably a decent amount of fun. So that works with those dudes. I mean, the core idea should be clear. Yeah, you play with these dudes, and then you can basically also play with these bears if you want. And the idea is that you weaken your opponent's units, and while doing so, these grow. Which means you can you will play these archers. These archers weaken your opponent's units, and then all of your stuff grows. You can play lacerates, and key is Jennifer. You need Jennifer. So if you want to play this kind of deck, you need Jennifer. Then you play these trembles. I think I disenchanted them because I needed some dust. But you play this card which trembles the ground, so which actually deals damage, AoE damage, then they grow again, rinse and repeat. Okay, so that's that. Other than that, you can just push this button and just put in minions into your deck. So minions would be, I mean, that's probably also one of the easiest. So just putting in minions and playing this deck. Minions would be, you can probably even just put in those minions, these minions. Don't even play any kind of discard. Just putting these minions. That's not tier 1 or tier 2. I'm just saying that's also a very easy way to do it. So let's say you have this leader. You can just put in random amount of bronze minions. The hero button spawns you 2 dudes. Then you just play a lot of stuff. And get the better of your opponent. I know this is not a this is not a tier 1 competitive deck, but that's definitely something you can do. You can just play this hero. You can play, and why I'm pointing this out is because I think the general card quality of those minions in Skellige is quite high, and the hero power also spawns you 14 stats, which means if you want to have a very easy to play deck, it would be this. Yeah, you can then fill out with lacerates. You can, for example, put 2 lacerates if you want. You can put 2 Eldritch Thunder if you want, maybe a First Light. You can just fill the deck, but just the general card quality is quite strong. Obviously, you play with these revivers, and then you also, and this is the other thing, right? The passive hero power is also very strong, which means not only do you have very high value minions, but you also have a very high value hero power. Which means if you just do it like this, it's extremely budget. You can just push in all minions you have. and then you have a quite strong tier 3 deck. Yeah, it's I mean, now you could say, yeah, tier 3 is pretty bad, but if you're extreme budget, and I'm talking about spending no money and being in the game for 3 or 4 days, this might even be the strongest deck you can build. Yeah, besides monsters. But that's definitely a viable option. Okay, and the other one with the Skellige would be with King Bran, and that would mean discard. Yeah. So the general idea is here that you press your hero power, and the hero power is discarding your cards. You can also combine this with discarding cards with these pirates. And discard benefits extremely these war longships. So you play these war longships, you keep them in your starting hand in the mulligan, you play them out as your very first action of the game, and then you start discarding cards. And while you're discarding cards, these warships completely shoot down your enemy. If you get 2 of these war longships and you get the discard queue going, that's a lot of fun for you. This you can basically complement with the minions, standard minions, obviously these discard minions, 2 or 3 of those, depending on what you have else, and then like always, lacerate maybe 1, maybe 1 of these, maybe 1 first light if you want to fill your stuff, and just playing everything where this card is printed. So if you have this guy, play this guy. This is legendary, but it would be also legendary good if you would have this guy in your Skellige deck. So maybe if you have the Abundant Dust, it would even be clever to craft this dude. If you have Dim, if you have this guy, play this guy. If you have this guy, okay, play this guy. If you have this, actually, sorry, before you craft this, you might even craft Olgierd, because this is only 200 dust. Morkrag is way stronger, but this is of course then only 200 dust, this is 800 dust. So if you have this guy, play this guy. If you have this guy, play this guy. Oh yeah, this guy you play anyways. So yeah. If you have Abundant Dust, like a roach is always a very nice thing. Yeah, in this way, and of course, like always, just fill out all gold slots you have. If you have, oh yeah, sorry, Birna, craft Birna if you want to play the deck. Yeah, so she's only 200 dust and extremely important for the deck. Same with Ermion. So don't play the deck without those 2. Always craft those 2, if possible. Okay, so this would be the Bran discard deck. Yeah, Bran discard. Or Skellige Bran discard. I mean, since we have played this deck for the last week, I won't go into detail how to play it exactly, but the general rule of thumb is play these ships and then do all the discard possible, getting these pirates out, playing your hero power, and then discarding, of course, always these as priority, because they do a big deal if being discarded. Yeah. So that's that. Leaves us with the last faction, which is Nilfgaard. You can also play Nilfgaard reveal deck, sure. The spy deck. Let's only talk about the standard control Nilfgaard here, because food also arrived, and we are all not only tired but also hungry. So yes, the Nilfgaard deck. It completely relies on these road tossers. Everything around this deck evolves around these road tossers and getting any kind of value out of them. Yeah, it's not a super easy to be played deck. You will get it in time, but it's not foolproof. Yeah, so you need to spend at least a little bit of time to understand the core mechanics. But if you do, it can be a very fun deck to be played. You have these Nilfgaard Knights, and they are really cool because they are 11 stats as a browse card. You want to play those. They are really cool. You can add 1 or 2 of those. They are basically fillers. If you want, fill your deck with them. And these are really good. You can also play 1 or 2 Fire Scorpions if you want to have fillers, but they are nothing more. Medics 2. And then you can also kind of experiment with this, like always having one of those, if you want. If you don't, doesn't matter, you don't need them. And the silver slot. So, or maybe I go into the gold slot very quickly, because maybe I mean, many of those are legendary, right? But Carrier is the epic you need, and you cannot play this deck without. So you need to craft him if you want to play this deck, which is kind of Nilfgaard control, yeah. So you need this dude, and yeah, Wilgefortz, I mean, he's legendary, so don't craft Ciri. You want to play Ciri in this deck, but you don't necessarily need to craft her, because you get her for free on level 18. If you are not at level 18 yet, or you don't want to wait that long, you might want to craft her, but you get her for free later. Just saying. Other than that, yeah, there is Skellige, but you don't necessarily need to craft him. So that's that. You never want to craft Xartesius. If you have him, you would play him, but you don't craft him. If you have Abundance of Dust, Wilgefortz is your man. Yeah, you want to play Wilgefortz, but again, of course, that's expensive. But it's worth it. Yeah, it's worth it. And if you have the Abundance of 800 Dust, maybe you might consider whether you have an Abundance of 1600. But that's a different story. So, silver slot. And yeah, I mean, you would play then Xartesius and Skellige, one of those two additionally. So silver slot. You would like to play Orcs in this deck, because he is 2 better than the Dwarf is. So that would be pretty cool. If you have Peter, play him. If you don't have him, you don't need to. Absolute staple is Cantarella. You need to craft her, because you need a card advantage with this deck, and Cantarella provides you card advantage. You also Rotos the mid-row, and then the carcasses eats your Cantarella. So that's basically the trick of the deck. Yeah, so, or one of the tricks with this deck. This one, yeah, don't craft him, but you would play him. Oh, this is important, so you might really consider crafting him, because he's really good for this deck. Roach, the General Roach. Maybe if you have the Abundance of Dust, you might want to craft him, because he's viable as a neutral in many decks. Okay. And of course the usual Dimitrium bomb. Alright, so that's your Nilfgaard control. You saw me playing that already, so if you want to see some gameplay, you can probably check my past broadcasts, and there you will see especially early broadcasts, so that's specifically good for beginners, because at that point I was a super beginner myself. Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed that much. These are all basically the meta decks. I think it's good to point it out of many reasons. I mean, first of all, I hope that this might cancel out a little bit of the confusion, because new players might be very confused about the abundance of deck choices, or about the sheer possibility of things, whereas it's not limited, but it's definitely overlookable. Yeah, so it's not that it's infinite confusion, but there is a finite amount of choices, and then fine tech choices within those. And what I find really awesome is that the deck principles are all based on bronze cards. I mean, not all based on bronze cards, sorry, but on common and rare cards, which means you can play all deck principles, nearly all deck principles, with a basic set of cards, you know what I mean, with a budget set of cards. Yeah. Of course, some decks rely more on the epics and legendaries, and some might be quite bad without having those. But the general principle, you can always fulfill the general principle of a class or of a deck type. Okay, so that's that. I also hope to give a better guideline, or gave a better guideline for those people who basically opened epics or legendaries of a specific class. So let's assume what basically happened to Camden today. He opened a lot of legendaries from Nilfgaard. So he basically opened all the good legendaries from Nilfgaard and not that many from the other classes. So he was wondering, okay, what should I do? I mean, I would like to build a Nilfgaard deck, but I don't have a clue how this should look like. And this was basically also the stream today, or the last 2 hours. So if you picked awesome legendaries or epics from a specific class, thumbs up, you are able to play every class. Every class has a viable deck, or even 2. Yeah. So that's that. And finally, I would have I want to clear also confusion about meta decks, and also what decks you will probably encounter. So what you can expect. So because it's not endless, it's finite, which means if you happen to face a monster deck on the ladder, it's extremely likely that this monster deck will be either the Foglet deck, which build you saw, or the deck with the skeletons, which basically is called consume monsters, but they consume their monsters. And this might also be a little bit, or this might also make clearer what you want to play against or play around, because you know what to expect. For example, if you expect a golden Chiron, you might play different than if you don't expect a golden Chiron. Maybe as a final conclusion also, or a short hint what you wouldn't like to do as a general rule of thumb, which is there's one card, one golden card, which is the Geralt Igni. And this card is being played by many people. And this destroyed the strongest non-golden units on the opposite row if that row totals 20 or more strength. But the trick is that if 2 of your minions are of the same strength, not only will he destroy 1, but he will destroy all. Many people already know that from the Scorch mechanic. So Scorch is this card, which is basically also doing kind of a similar effect. So as an absolute rule of thumb, if you can avoid having similar stats on your minions, always try to avoid that. So for example, if you would play Nilfgaard control, try to avoid playing 2 Nilfgaardian Knights, because if you play 2 Nilfgaardian Knights, chances that you have the 2 minions with same high stats on the board is very high. And then you might just lose the round because he plays Scorch or Geralt Igni. So try to avoid to have big minions with similar stats on your board. So thank you very much for watching the stream today. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope that you will try out some of the stuff we were talking about the last few hours. So thanks very much for watching. Enjoy your day. I will now eat some awesome food, and then we'll head hopefully very quickly to the bed, sleep, and we'll be back for you tomorrow midnight. So today midnight probably. So thanks very much for watching. Have a very nice day, and bye.